3 is the future.
Welcome, crew, to What Are Your Three, a Channel 3 podcast, where it's only been 24 hours since I did this, but I feel like my voice is better than it was yesterday. But we're going to see if it actually holds up for the whole episode. But besides that, we're here to talk with a member of the Channel 3 community about 3 games of their choosing, go through some honorable mentions, some other odds and ends, have a nice little video game discussion. I'm Dan. With me, and actually it's probably the best he's looked in days, is Ray.
It's true. I am, in fact, coughing much less today than I was yesterday or last 2 weeks. But if I say too many words at once, I might start coughing again. But we're here. We're here with a member of the community who I guess most people would know him from Smash Brothers. But I know there's so much more to him. And I'm very excited to have this conversation. It is, in fact, lazypie. Lazy, how are you doing today?
How's it going, eh?
There we go. Lazy is, in fact, from Canada, in case you were
surprise.
For anyone who was not aware, he is part of the Canadian team.
Yeah, I just refilled my maple syrup reservoir in our router, so we should be good all night.
We just have to be careful because we're nearing our allotment for the year. I know we're at least in September, but I know we only get a few more Canadians before the end of the year. You got to be careful.
But the Canadians, it feels like they come in bunches. Like Lazy brings like 5 Canadians with him wherever he goes. So they kind of roll deep together whenever we do stuff. It's a whole thing. But here we're gonna talk about a bunch of games. We're gonna get the obvious one out of the way first, and then we're gonna talk about the rest of Lazy that people may not know about. But we're starting with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Surprise!
The ultimate Smash Brothers game, right? But let's take a step back, as I always do whenever we have this. Tell us the history of Smash Brothers for you.
Wow, it's a long one. I tried my best to kind of keep my thoughts kind of in order here. But so how did I get started with Smash Brothers? I started all the way back with 64, and I actually discovered it by accident. I went to a Blockbuster, and for those of you that know what Blockbuster is, sometimes the games that you rent isn't the game that you want to rent. So to be fair, I completely forgot exactly what game I actually wanted to rent to begin with in the first place. And what happened was that I ended up taking home Super Smash Bros. 64. And I don't think I've ever seen anything or even the ads for it yet, because I didn't really watch too much TV back then. But and I just remember thinking, oh my God, Link is in this game. And you could beat up Pikachu, Yoshi, Mario as Link. And I was a huge Zelda fan. So for me, that was kind of one of the biggest draws to the game. And, you fight your way through all of these guys, and then you fight this big, disembodied hand. And it's just a big, epic, fight fest. And I thought it was like one of the coolest things I stumbled upon by accident. When I don't even remember how old I was at the time. It was young me, definitely young me.
That's amazing. So you picked up this game without seeing the kind of legendary commercial?
Nope, I never saw it until afterwards when I found out what this game was, and I thought, oh, that's cool. And then I was like, oh wait, there's this commercial for it, and it's really amazing. And they had that music playing in the background, and I thought it was an amazing commercial to begin with, and it just kind of further kind of hyped up the whole Smash Brothers draw, to me at least.
So we have Smash Bros. 64, and then Melee comes, and it's clearly a switch in the game. It's almost like 64 was this proof of concept, and they're like, yeah, people like this. We can just put in a bunch of our titles together, and they'll fight each other. And now we'll add some extra combat. We'll add spot dodging, and we're gonna make this a real fighting game. You
just gave Sakurai a stroke with how easy you tried to make that sound.
Yeah, that was not an easy development cycle from what I've seen.
I didn't say it was easy. I said they did it. They added a lot.
My Google alerts are blowing up. Apparently, he had a stroke and he's not looking good now. I don't know what happened. Unrelated.
They added a lot from
Yo,
64 to Melee.
Well, there
Yeah,
were things they wanted to do in 64, but they couldn't. Like they wanted to do final smashes, and just
Yes.
the system would have caught fire.
Yeah, it's been literally all like more than 2 decades, and even 2 decades later, I shout outs to Sakurai for that. Fair enough, and it's Melee to me. I think the first time I saw it was when they revealed that trailer, that super epic trailer that everyone's remixed time and again. I think it was what, Space World, or they didn't. I don't know if they had E3 back then yet, but I remember seeing that and being so hyped up for it. It felt like I was watching like a movie trailer. It had like that production quality with it, right? And it got me so hyped up, and it got me thinking, oh my god, when is this one coming out? And they said, later this year. And I thought, you're kidding me. Oh my god. Well, and that sealed the deal for me for getting a GameCube. So that was, to me, my birthday present for the year. I wanted to get a GameCube, and I wanted to get Smash Brothers. So when it came out, I played that. And this was the one when I first started playing multiplayer, because for me, Melee, and I'm gonna say Brawl as well, those were more single player affairs for me. I played those kind of by myself, and I didn't have any siblings that really played as well. Melee was the first one where I had some friends that come over, and they said, oh, you have Melee, let's play. There's a multiplayer mode in it, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, great, cool. And we started playing in that, and then my house became kind of the after school hangout spot for a lot of my friends in high school, when we started learning the mechanics and being competitive with each other, and getting into it, and a lot of rivalries kind of formed from that stick to this day still. So for me, that's kind of how I got involved with I'd say not competitive, but like to be competitive to multiplayer games in general. So, and I don't know if a lot of you guys know this, but the way I play games, Smash is the complete like outlier for me. It's the only game I play that's PvP based. That's strictly PvP based. Every other single game I play, every MMO I've played, it's either co-op or single player, and I don't usually do a lot of PvP in any other games other than Smash.
Yeah, it's like the crazy part is that this whole thing, we're only talking so far here, not even getting to the other games. This is like a 2-year cycle, because like Smash Bros. Comes out almost late in the 64 like era, and then Melee is 2001. Like it's like right after. It doesn't even make sense how quickly that turnaround was. Mm-hmm. And so now this is you're starting to feel competitive when you're playing this game. I know I did too, and I think back now, and I was like, yeah, I was competitive with like my 3 or 4 guys that like played it. Like as in our heads, we were going at it like all the time, and it was like 1v1. Where were you with like playing with items and kind of like the like silly rule sets?
Oh, we did. We had all kinds of crazy rule sets. Like there was no notion of like one-on-one Fox only Final Destination at the time. It was whatever you wanted to play, anytime you wanted. We had some crazy rule sets. My favorite stage in Melee to this day is still going to be Temple, because you had the Fight Club.
Fight Club.
That was where that was when boys became men. So you fought in the Fight Club, and that's when we'd have like 4 people playing at a time, obviously, and then it'd get dwindled down, and then when it's down to like the last 2, they just stop. It doesn't matter where they were fighting. They stopped what they were doing, and they both ran into the Fight Club. And then that's where it was settled.
It's so weird because the internet is not a huge thing still at that point. And yet everybody that played Melee has that memory one way or the other. Like, it's not like I watched Fight Club when I was 8 years old when this game was out, or 9 years old. But somehow everyone played on Hyrule, and then everyone ended up in the little bottom section there.
Yep.
And it was this weird standard that just appeared. And this is once again Sakurai creating all forms of balance. And it was like, no, everyone's gonna play this game the exact same way because it's so perfect.
It's encoded into DNA. Like, even if you were to drop people into it today, whether they play the game, like if we took Jedi, who is like new to Smash Brothers and 022 and newer to Smash Brothers, and I bet you if we dropped them in there, they would end up down there. It's just the way it's just there's just something about the DNA of it. This is like you're gonna come down here and just get in each other's
It's the
faces.
level design. It's designed to make you feel like you should end up here at some point. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so we have Melee, which is when we look at all the games together, I always think of it as like the heaviest. I feel like the characters are very heavy. Everyone sticks to the ground. It's these big. You got to get these big hits, and you kind of blast people away. And then we move to Brawl, and they flip the script, and now everybody floats. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yep.
We all floats. We all we randomly trip in what has to be just the oddest decision of all time to put something in a game.
You're talking about tripping.
Yeah, I'm never going to understand the tripping mechanic.
It was, as far as I know, it was supposed to limit the competitiveness of the game.
Yes,
because Sakurai's relationship with the whole competitive community thing there has always kind of been, in turmoil throughout all the games.
Right.
It wasn't until probably Smash 4 where he started kind of embracing more of a, structured kind of format of play, and that this game can be competitive if you want it to be. And with Brawl, I think it was kind of a way to kind of weed it out. And obviously you can't keep the community down, so there's people that made the mods, Project Plus, Project Minus, Project M, all the different mods for it to kind of make it a little bit more competitive. And I think for me at the time, because I wasn't too exposed to the competitive community back then in Melee, partly because I was so intimidated by it. Like, I knew it existed, it's just and I had my friends, and I was comfortable in my little circle of friends, but I didn't want to go to tournaments because obviously I didn't want to hurt my pride back then, because you're a teenager and you didn't want to you wanted to do things that made you feel like you were good at something, not like you were utter trash. So obviously for that reason I didn't go to tournaments that often during Smash, both actually for both Melee and for Brawl. They were kind of more personal affairs there, because with Brawl for me was all about the single player. Subspace Emissary to this day is going to be by far the best, I would say, Avengers level type mashup, hands down. It's gonna stand up in my mind as that. It's Nintendo's Avengers basically to me.
100%. I loved Brawl too. They put the final smashes in. You really got all these different characters showing up. This is Zero Suit Samus. Is this where Zero Suit Samus starts for you?
No.
Was it Brawl right away, or were you still using Link at this time?
No, actually in Melee I switched to Marth. I had no idea who he was. I just thought this is a cool anime character, and he loses a sword. And back then, Link wasn't jiving with the way that I like to play, because Link's always been kind of a ranged zoner type of character, right? And I like to, rush down, get in your face, get into a brawl, like Melee type of thing, right? So I did play Link up until that point, and then I think you unlock Marth through an event match.
Oh, those events were so fun.
Those event matches were
that was so great.
And it was I think it was called On Guard or something, and it was like, who is this guy? He doesn't speak any English, but he's amazing.
So in Brawl, you're still Marth.
I'm still a Marth.
Still Marth.
I was Marth all the way through until probably Smash 4.
So talk about Smash 4. I missed out on Smash 4 because I didn't have the Wii U. I didn't have a 3DS. I think a student showed it to me one time, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's Smash Brothers again. But I was never a part of it at all. So how was Smash 4 for you?
For me, Smash 4 was the beginning of my competitive lifespan. And I think that was when the lead up into Smash 4, when it was first announced on the 3DS and then later on the Wii U, all the marketing, the Nintendo Directs beforehand that led up to it, hyped it up so much to the point where every time I watched a Direct, it felt like Christmas to me. Because they would do a character reveal, they would do, it was a whole thing around it. And to me, that kind of hyped it up. And this was also coincidentally the same time I discovered the Smash Brothers Melee documentary about the competitive community, which I believe was called The Smash Brothers, and it focused more on the rise and fall of the Melee community as a whole. Which, if anyone wants to watch an awesome a gaming documentary, pick that up and watch it. It's an amazing documentary, and it kind of really encapsulates the whole struggle of kind of a grassroots organization coming from no backing from obviously Nintendo, and making their own thing, and it's still being alive and thriving even to this day. So watching that, it kind of made me feel a little bit more comfortable about competitive play. And when we launched in I can't even remember what year it was, but when Smash 4 came out, I started holding Smash Fests at my house, and it was like Smash Fest 5 or maybe 2 to 3 like or so setups, and we had like maybe 20 people in my basement, and we were all just playing and having a good time. And we weren't too competitive back then, but then obviously a select core of us started becoming more and more competitive, and we'd start having little mini tournaments, having the type of consistent rule sets that you would see in kind of competitive play. And then that was after I had a few of those, I gained enough confidence to go to my first tournament, and my first in-person tournament. And this is where my Zero Suit was born. So my first tournament I go to, I'm still maining Marth, mind you, and I play. And the first guy I faced was, he was with another group of friends, and he was like their friend that didn't really play Smash that much. So here I am in my first match, and I win it, 2-0, and I thought, oh wow, okay,
I'm
maybe
amazing.
I'm amazing at this game. And then the second guy I face was the second best Zero Suit Samus player in Ontario. And then the rest is history.
And then you learned.
And then I learned. I was humbled. I don't think I've ever been humbled that badly in a tournament. And at this point, I find people go one of two ways when they get humbled that badly. They'll, tuck their legs between their legs, and then they'll, never show up again at a tournament ever again because, they don't, it's all their pride and ego was hurt. But for me, it was like, oh, damn, I want to learn how to do that. Like whatever it is that you did to me, I want to learn how to do that. So I started going more and more to tournaments at the beginning of Smash 4. And that's kind of where, you get forged in the fire, right? Mm-hmm. You learn that you're not a big fish anymore in your little pond. The pond is much bigger. There are much bigger fish out there. And, I would go to locals, and I would play until my thumbs were sore, and to the point where didn't even win a single match that whole night. And that was okay. I think a lot of people also don't understand how to what's the saying? It's like you can't scramble a few eggs. Sorry, you can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs, right?
Yep.
So, being kind of forged in the fire with the competitive community, that's how I started with Smash 4, But I was pretty much there until about mid Smash 4, and then a lot of real life stuff happened. I ended up getting married, I had a kid, and a whole bunch of life stuff. So I stepped away from the game a bit more, and I started going again a little bit after, once kind of everything kind of settled a little bit towards the end of Smash 4 when Bayo and everyone was out, and the balance patches were done. So the community wasn't in the best state at that point, since everyone played Bayo, and if you didn't know the Bayo matchup, you were out of luck.
So now, Ray, is that the first villain origin story we've had on the episode?
Oh, except the way I got married, had a kid, and then I came back and Bayonetta.
No, the beating he took is Zero Suit Samus, and
that's full on. That's
full villain origin story right there.
Yes, absolutely.
So we finally make it to Smash Ultimate, and so I want to start with what was the change for you? Because you're still obviously using Zero Suit Samus. Mm-hmm. What did it feel like a change in character, in the way she played or felt or moved or whatnot?
It felt, honestly, because ZSS was a top tier in Smash 4. I felt right at home, I think, kind of play, because the play style didn't change as much. You were still kind of rushing down people, and you're kind of, here and there. And, I think Ultimate was one of the games where I decided that I wanted to commit more to going to weeklies more consistently. So I was going maybe 1 or 2 weeklies every week, and I was still like maybe not winning much during this point. I would still lose all evening, and still be okay with it. Still play, anyone that would play with me. I remember actually getting bodied by Riddles once at a couple locals that we went to, and I remember when he busted onto the scene, everyone was heckling him because he was like this 15-year-old kid and nobody knew who he was. And then he destroyed like our PR members, and being in the venue and everyone going all hype was crazy. And yeah, so just going consistently more and more tournaments. Even at this point, this is when I had Sylvie, so we were bringing Sylvie to some of these tournaments too. And shout outs to Mistaken here, because she's the all-star keeping her busy while I go to these tournaments.
For context, for anybody who doesn't know, Sylvie is Little Lazy Pie, and Miss Taken is the Mrs. Lazy Pie.
So when you're doing the competitive stuff, where does your tilt stick crew come into this? How does that all form?
Tilt stick actually happened after the Dad Gaming.
Oh, so it was like
it was actually
fairly
shortly after. So I remember when I was going to weeklies and stuff, I made a couple friends, and I was still having Smash Fests kind of here and there. And our Smash Fest would go all the way till like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I would still be going to locals, maybe 1 or 2 a week. There's actually one time I almost got DQ'd from a local because I was changing Sylvie. And as soon as I got back to the TO's like already DQ'd me, and I said, "Oh, I was just changing my kid." Right? And he's like, "That's the most legitimate excuse I have ever heard in my life," because I was holding her with me like as I was going up to the TO, and she's like, "You know what? You're back in. I don't care. Like,
here's the diaper, okay?"
That's amazing.
So, and then after 2020 happened and the pandemic happened, that's kind of when I discovered the Dad Gaming, and shortly after that, with a lot of the friends that I made through the competitive community, that's where I came into my tilt stick Discord. So since everything went online and that's all that we could do, that's kind of where I kind of planted in. And I remember seeing the Dad Gaming hosting, or I remember being part of the Dad because it's of the memes and stuff. And then I was being told, "Oh, they're going to make a gaming subgroup." Oh, that's great, And you got your average, you got your COD, you got your Fortnite, and then they said they were going to make a Smash subgroup, and I'm like, "Oh, interesting. All right." And I think it was Ruben that I reached out to first, and I thought the first thing I saw when I saw this was like, okay, well, first of all, what's the rule set they're going to use? Is it going to be like items or whatever? So I reached out to Ruben or Bad Intel, as you guys know him, and I asked him, "So what's the rule set? Like, how are you gonna run this, right?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do heats of like I think he originally wanted to have it like 4-man fights each in the first inaugural team." And I told him, no, that's not how you do it. It's not how competitive Smash works. It's 1-on-1, 3 stock, no items. And I kind of hinted or slowly pushed him towards this kind of a format. It says, okay, well, it's more fair. There's no random chance that you get lucky with items, et cetera, and we had the inaugural one came out. I remember winning that one. I was fighting, I think it was Eddie Hernandez, who's a really good Mac player. Season 1, Season 2, and Season 3. And then all you guys came along and took the titles from me afterwards. But those were fun.
There's no easy on the you guys stuff there. That was I took my thrashing from you early on. Fear not.
I remember them. I remember those thrashings, and you have come a long way as well too, Dan. Your link and your Byleth is much better, I would say, especially now.
So tell us, as somebody who's competed and played a whole bunch, what's your best piece of advice? Because we've had a bunch of new people who have now all of a sudden discovered Smash Brothers, which is amazing. For again another Nintendo game that is what at this point 6 years old or so, something like that. And you got all these new people playing and learning, and some of them really getting into it and really wanting to do. So what's the advice? How do you get better in this game? What are the steps?
The best way to get better is to get beaten up. That's how I learned it. Learning how to kind of take a loss, I think, is one of the hardest things people can, is one of the biggest hurdles, right? Because a lot of times when we play games, it's we're tied to our ego, right? And when our ego is hurt, obviously we don't like that, right? We lose a game, and all of a sudden you don't feel good about yourself. You start to question your ability in this game and things like that, right? But it's the same thing with kind of not even just with within the whole realm of gaming. It's just you learn a lot more from your losses than you would if you just destroyed someone, and I got destroyed a lot. And even then I'm still like a 0-2 at some tournaments. So as long as you kind of take your chin up and you make an honest effort to say, okay, well, don't just try again. Learn what went wrong, right? Kind of identify like, hey, this is where I went wrong. This is where, I was losing a lot in my battles. This was where I can kind of improve on. And on top of that, after you kind of identify that, it's just practice, 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 practice. Anyone who's ever played an instrument knows, right? It's all about practice, practice, practice. Your instrument is your controller, right? And the notes that you play are the things your character does. So when you learn kind of how the flow of the game, the way I like to put Smash Brothers to someone, or competitive Smash Brothers specifically, to someone who has never seen it, it's like, you guys ever played rock, paper, scissors? Rock beats paper. Wait, hold on. Is that right? Sorry, paper beats rock.
I was gonna say this might be a Canadian version that I'm not aware of.
Scissors beats paper, etc., and rock beats scissors, right? In Smash, it's the same thing, right? You have rock, paper, scissors, and it becomes the fastest game of rock, paper, scissors that you've ever played in your life, right? And the second layer on top of that, I would say, is it's also just like chess, where not only do you have to have the right position, right? You have to kind of know where your opponent is going. You have to know what to do. And even if you are in the right position, you have to choose the right option. Are they going to go for an attack, a grab, or, whatever? And to put it in layman's term, generally, shielding beats attacking, right? In Smash Brothers. And grabbing beats shielding. And generally, and not always the case, but attacking beats grabbing, right? And it just comes up as that. So someone who's new and coming up, well, I find they tend to go for scissors all the time. Scissors. I'm always attacking. And my best advice for a lot of them is, slow it down. You don't always have to attack. You have a shield button for a reason.
Yeah, my son is still not aware that there's a shield button.
Yeah.
Even
just running up to an opponent and shielding and doing nothing is enough mental pressure for them to be like, oh, what do I do, right? And then they throw out an attack, and then now you can punish them while they shield, right? So it's one of those things that's, it takes practice, and you kind of have to learn how to take your losses, right? You got to take that L every once in a while.
All right, let me ask you I'm going to ask you a random question here before we switch games. I know you still play with a GameCube controller, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know you're a GameCube player.
Still right here.
There it is. My question is, what button or buttons do you use to jump?
I use my X and Y buttons to jump. I have turned tap jump off ever since Melee. And the reason for that is very simple. If you want to up air without jumping, you cannot if you have tap jump on.
Mm-hmm.
So you burn your double jump, and your double jump is one of your best resources that you have in the game, right? And you burn it right away, then you have less resources to deal with, And, it just kind of, I feel like turning tap jump off and turning, I think for me, the biggest thing is tilt stick as well. I switch to tilt stick a lot. Is it gives you much better control of your character, right? You don't accidentally burn your double jump, and you have access to your tilt, which, to be fair, is harder to execute than your smash attacks.
And you said you use X and Y. Do you find yourself pressing both to do the kind of short empty hops, or is it just you're pressing one or the other?
Hold on, give me a second. I gotta check my GameCube controller. I use the Y button.
I was gonna say you gotta think about it, right?
I gotta look at my hands and like, okay, which one do I use? Yeah, I use my Y button a lot.
Okay. I was gonna say, for me it's I use the Pro controller, but I'll jump with both. Oh shoot, now I gotta look too. X, the top button. I'll jump with X, but then I also have right bumper for very specific characters. Like if I play Mega Man, I need to jump with the bumper, because if I try to jump with X, I can't do his neutral attack in the air.
Yeah.
And I think Min Min. I think those are the two that I have right bumper jump for.
Yeah.
On like these very, very specific things. But it is there. And an empty hop once in a while, like you said, just to scare your opponent into thinking.
And I think
something might happen.
Yeah. And I think to me, watching everyone kind of progress, get better as you kind of go on, and like as you kind of play more and more Smash. We saw that happening with from transition from TDG to we had the scrub matches, we had the crew battles. All of that was, to me, was peak Smash. It was great. It was amazing. We had events going on every week. But also for me, the best part is seeing specific people like actually progress and get better, and to the point where I'm no longer like, they're no longer what you would call free, right? Like Dan's no longer free. I can't take it easy on Dan. I have to lean forward if I face Dan sometimes, right? Grim was another one. Grim was I remember his Pokemon trainer was
Grim was the first person that came to mind when you said that.
Grim, that's the ultimate story right there.
I can't sleep on him anymore. When he brings out Puff, he's read me so many times. He's got the lazy.pdf downloaded, like. But yeah, so watching everyone kind of progress and get better. 0202, same thing. I'm seeing his DK and I'm like, oh my god, like dude, like the way that you are right now compared to how you were when you first started was, it's like night and day, right?
And he's just willing DK into existence.
Exactly. Yeah. Like that type of progression and that type of kind of community involvement is one of the best parts of the whole, community aspect of this gaming thing, right?
All right, well, let's move to your second game, a game that has its feelings hurt because when you initially sent your comments, this was supposed to be number one. You said, no. You're getting demoted. World of Warcraft, no longer the number one game. Now you're number two. It got demoted. What say you to open this up then?
So you guys know me from Smash. You guys know, everything about what I play with in Smash Brothers and everything. But before that, it's not even a close second. The amount of hours I've poured into a game like World of Warcraft isn't even close. I would estimate I have well over 10,000 hours in World of Warcraft. This was my game that I committed kind of myself to, before I had a life, obviously. But so I got into World of Warcraft from as early, I think it was before even the first expansion. It was close to the first expansion. So this was circa 2004, maybe 2005. So I was fresh out of high school. I had a part-time job and a lot of spare time. So
and a good internet connection.
I had a good internet connection. So for me, I walked into an EB Games one day, and the manager at that EB Games ran a guild. So he's like, I'm looking for something to do over the summer. Got any games that you can suggest to me? And for those of you in the States, EB Games is GameStop here in Canada.
You used to be for us, but it depends on where you were.
Yeah. I definitely saw. I know I've seen an EB Games before.
Yes.
Yeah, we had Funko Land, we had EB Games.
Oh yeah.
It all kind of fell apart, and GameStop was the one left standing.
So I got into on a whim from one of the managers there. He invited me over to his guild, and we ran like a small guild, and it was kind of casual, and we were playing and kind of leveling through the whole kind of experience. And the biggest thing out of this was that ended up becoming my first job. My guild master recruited me to my first job in guild chat through World of Warcraft. So a couple months later, he messaged me in the game and says, "Hey, you looking for a job?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?" And mind you, I fresh out of high school, guy offers you a job at EB Games, you jump at that. Our job interview was literally just, he sat me down at the food court and says, "By the way, this job is a retail. Do you still want it?" I'm like, "Yeah." And that's it. That was my interview. That was literally everything. And then I started working there. He used to do our work schedule around our raiding schedule. So he would make sure that I was off on the nights that we were raiding. So, and I think it was him and his wife that ran this guild as well. And it kind of taught me the whole value of like community and building up your whole community. Kind of same thing that we do with the Dad Gaming and C3. It's at a much more intimate like level, right? So that was one of the big things for me. I was with the guild for a while up until like maybe Burning Crusade, because the first expansion came out, and I played a warrior, which is the main tank. Like he's like the tanking type of character. So in most MMOs I've ever played, I've always been I've gravitated more towards like the tanking type of character. And in all the guilds I've been in, I've been the guild's kind of main tank. So once we go do these big 25-man, 10-man raids, I'm the guy with the big shield that charges at the dragon and keeps their attention on me while everyone else tries to, kill the dragon. And learning kind of the whole mechanics behind it, progressing through end game rating and kind of how all of that kind of plays into I guess forming the community and forming a guild has kind of always been kind of ingrained in my whole kind of psyche, right?
So it's been 20 years now at this point for you. And the game's had ups and downs with the various expansions through the years. Like, what were some of your top expansions through time?
So for me, my heyday was back in the first expansion for a while was Burning Crusade. And Burning Crusade for me taught me everything that I needed to know as a raider. Because back then we did progression rating. And what progression rating is it's the cutting edge being the first on your server to down a specific boss. Right? Like they would come up with this raid that had like 10 bosses in it, and like they were all super hard, and everything required you to kind of, bang your head against the wall for, weeks at a time and slowly progress. Like, this guild got, 5 out of 10 in this 5 out of 10 bosses in this raid, but our guild got 6 out of 10. So it was a whole pride thing at that point, right? And kind of managing that whole progression and kind of managing, like, mind you, these raids are like 25 people, so getting 25 people to agree on a schedule to raid 1 or 2 days and nights out of the week from their busy schedules, and you also had to have the right group makeup, right? Like you had to have the right number of tanks, the right number of damage dealers, the right number of healers. People would be progressing and getting better, but sometimes, you'd have to kind of cut people loose because you say, hey, you're not performing. At this point, it starts becoming like a day job, right? There used to be a joke where the game in World of Warcraft was a game where the game doesn't actually start until you hit max level, and then you start the end game. And that was where, everything kind of, came together when you had guilds trying to, and mind you, you had politics too in this, right? So you had maybe a server had 10 guilds or so, right? And they were all trying to progress. Sometimes people would get poached. People would try to be, this person was in this guild before and they're trying to recruit me for this guild, and then so on. And then, guild drama happens. And the fallout, everything kind of coming together, and the rise and fall of different guilds. It was its own epic that you wrote kind of as the game progressed. My peak was in, I would say, Wrath of the Lich King, which was the expansion right after Burning Crusade. I joined a guild called, shout out to Blazing Aces Mercenaries in Kil'jaeden server, but we raided like 5 nights a week. And at some point, I think we reached the peak of in the top 500 guilds in North America, but it was a burnout. I was committing maybe 80 hours into the game, like a week, right? Because you had your raiding time, and then you had the prep for raiding. So you had to gather all your materials, your potions, learning all the strategies, strategizing, learning what worked, what didn't. And it was basically another job, basically, right? So
how'd you find your way to that guild?
Progression. So I built up from my first guild. It was called Circle of Avatars on Asgalore, but it was like a small mom and pop like guild, right? To the point where these guys are, and when you're at that age, you're in post-secondary and you have a lot of ego in you. You're kind of an elitist jerk. So for me, kind of progressing and saying, okay, well, we want to move up, and we want to say, and my core group of friends at the time, we jumped from guild and progressed and moved on to, higher reaching guild. You could call them cutting edge guilds.
There's real like dumping your girlfriend thinking you got better chances elsewhere energy here, and this is kind of hilarious.
Yes. But to be fair, I've seen a lot of people actually meet their significant other on that game.
Yes, literally in that case, yes.
So, and some people have there's always that whole you've lost your job because you play too much World of Warcraft. So I owe my current career right now where I'm at because of World of Warcraft, because that same manager or that same EB Games manager that hired me and was my guild master also hired me in the company I work in right now for IT, and that's where I've been for like the last 15 years.
So it was a good, clean break from the guild. That's the important part.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they've how do I put this? They've had some dark times with some of the expansions. I think their promise has been narratively they've got the next few in the bag and they know what they're going to do and they've got kind of a plan. How have you been feeling since like Dragonflight and getting ready for the next few years with them?
So I recently just resubbed just to kind of see how it's like. I haven't gotten much into end game content yet since most of the guilds, the guild that I was in, at least for the last few expansions, they've kind of fizzled out, and it's just been kind of a shell of a guild mostly. But honestly, I've just been enjoying just sitting there leveling and trying to convince my wife to get back into it. So she just recently resubbed as well. So we were playing through, leveling her character, getting her caught up. My favorite feature of the Dragonflight expansion was Dragonfly, because before it was just you had a flying mount and you were literally just swimming in the air. That's kind of how the mechanic worked. But now you have dynamic flying. So if you watched How to Train Your Dragon, it's exactly like that. So you have, or if you watch, for some people, it's like Game of Thrones, right? You have this little agile dragon just kind of flying through, and they've tweaked the flying system now to be more dynamic towards that type of thing, where you can kind of fly around. You had a bank. You can't just turn on the dime whenever you want to. It's pretty fun just flying around different zones and just seeing kind of Azeroth from that perspective now has been really fun in itself. In the new expansion coming up, I'm still kind of on the fence whether I want to kind of continue on and say I want to do end game raiding like I used to, because I don't have that same drive in me that I used to. Back then it was all about kind of pride, right? You wanted to be the first in the world to beat this boss, or be at least ahead of the curve in some ways. But now it's more, well, I just want to play to kind of have fun with people that I know and I want to play with, right? And that's it's a bit of a different, like 20-year-old you will have a different opinion versus like 30 or 40-year-old you, right?
Yeah, 30, 40-year-old you has actual chores and doesn't want to worry about making gaming a chore. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. At least until I can convince Sylvia to start playing this game with me.
Do you still run as like a tankish warrior?
Still do. Yep. So I'm still playing on my warrior. I also play on my druid, which is a guardian bear druid, which is also a tank. I also play a paladin, who is also a tank. And I also play a demon hunter, who is also a tank. So there's a pattern here.
Also a tank. Then he plays Zero Suit Samus in Smash Brothers. Not a
and
tank.
It's exactly the opposite of that. She's like glass cannon, lightweight, super fast. And it's just, like I said, Smash for me is a complete outlier. It's completely different from literally everything else that I play.
Well, let's take that opportunity then and say let's go to Game 3, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And the thing I have to ask you, because it's a game that comes up time and time again. It's a game that when you ask people about their favorite games of all time, you ask them about their favorite game in the Zelda franchise, Ocarina is among the top options. Probably about a third of the people are going to give you that answer. And up until 2016, it was probably more like 70% are going to give you that answer. And then Breath of the Wild probably shifted that a little bit. But what is it that, like, it doesn't matter whether you were 7 or 17 or 27 when this came out, like what is it that hit with this game?
For me, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time will always be kind of a special place in kind of my heart, right? To me, it was one of those rite of passage games. So when this game first came out, I begged my dad to buy it, and we went to our local games, or I think it was Toys R Us when we bought it. But and it was the first game that I spent literally, I think it was 10 hours straight playing my first session. And mind you, I was maybe 10, 11 at the time. I didn't even make it to the Deku Tree in the first 10 hours. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just going around, just casually strolling through Kokiri Village and just, talking to everyone, cutting the grass, going to the Lost Wood, just mindlessly
inspiring Animal Crossing, basically, when you were supposed to be done all of that in a half an hour most.
Yes, pretty much. So it was, I think, to me, one of the first games that really kind of immersed you in the world. Because when before that, I was a fan of like A Link to the Past, but I wouldn't like rave over it. Right, this was kind of the first Zelda foray into the whole 3D realm. So to me, it was kind of a big deal. And minus the fact that you go around mindlessly wandering and just looking at the world. It was one of the games where after you kind of start progressing through the game, you feel like a big sense of accomplishment after every single dungeon. Like you felt like you did something. And I think that sense of accomplishment, qualified. I don't want to say the word qualified because I think I considered myself a gamer at the time, but it was one of the ones where now I can kind of figure out my own problem, right? It was one of those games that really kind of pushed you and your problem solving skills where, well, this didn't work. Let's try doing this. Right. And once you kind of figure out like, oh, so that's how you did that one thing, that little Zelda tune goes in your head and that becomes, you have your epiphany moment. Right. So every single dungeon that you progress through, I remember how happy I was when I first got through the water temple, because everyone talks about the water temple when you talk about Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It was the gating. That was where you got gated when, based on how far you were. And I shamed me to admit it, but at the time I was stuck on the water temple. I couldn't figure it out. So that was the first time I decided to seek external help, right, in a video game and say, okay, let me look up this on. At the time, I think it was GameFAQs. So I shamelessly admit that was the one part where I decided I'll get external help. We don't, you guys.
Listen,
don't
it's legendary. It's a legendary problem. Right? You're not alone. It's okay. There's a support group.
Oh, I never got a support group though.
Yeah, we're all here for each other. Trust me. You're not the first one, and as long as that game continues to exist, you will not be the last to suffer at the hands of that water temple.
I want to see how my daughter faces through it once she gets to that age where she can progress through a game like that. But
she's not going to have the patience for it.
She won't have the patience for it, but it's okay. Just to watch her frustration.
That is, wow, I too like just sparking rocks around dynamite. Sure. Why not? Let's do it.
So it was up until just that one part where I think it was, depending on like the water level that you put in, you found like this hidden thing underneath the main tower. Anyways, that was just the one
spinning,
part.
And there's stuff spinning on all axes, X, Y, and Z axes too that you have to worry about.
Yes. So after that one part, then I was like, okay, let's start progressing through it again. And then the thing that defined probably the best mini boss battle in the entire gaming history, Dark Link. Like that to me was, I couldn't figure that out as well. As soon as I hit a wall, I hit another wall with this one. I thought this guy's doing exactly the same thing I'm doing, right? And the way that they introduced that whole boss fight was probably the most poetic like boss entrance, like in gaming history. Like you're walking into a room, it's all mist, water, and your reflection. Center, there's in the base center. There's like this island, and then you walk towards that island, and the next thing you know, your reflection's gone, right? And then you turn around, and your reflection's there on the island, and then you got to fight yourself. And he has the same amount of hearts that you have. So he has the same amount of like, hit points that you have. So if at that time you had like, the maximum number of hit points or maximum number of hearts you get at that point, then you've got a real fight on your hand because now you've got to fight yourself.
See, I never had any trouble with that fight. Because I think it was just like, I think it was one part just like I cleared the temple, no problem. And one part, I had no problem being patient and just waiting for him to be dumb and take him down. So that's funny you say that.
Well, that's because you were 27 when you played the game. Like you said, everybody was different ages. That's because you were an adult already.
You were an adult. You could comprehend. I'm 11-year-old me looking at this game thinking, oh my God, what do? I can't fight a mirror.
I was 14. Easy. It wasn't that much. You don't get to make that joke, lazypie. There's not that much of it. You're between the two of us.
You're right.
But, I think I was 13 or 14 for that one.
So and funny thing is that to this day, every time I do a playthrough of Ocarina of Time, I always save. I save a save file specifically just for that boss fight. So like, just so that you can go back and just play it anytime you want. Because obviously, with the game, once you beat it, you can't refight it, right? So there's always going to be 2 save files on my Ocarina of Time playthroughs, and one of them is right before Dark Link.
I've got nothing. There's nothing more. Again, just like you said, it's just such a beautiful scene you walk up to, and how they play it out. It's perfect.
Yeah, I think for me also one of the things I loved the most about the game was the whole time skip thing. Right, so at some spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't played Ocarina of Time, there's a time skip in the game, but it's been what, like 20?
It's been more than 25 years. You're good.
More than 25 years. So spoiler alerts be damned. But yeah, so there's a 7-year time skip in the game, and I think for me that was one of the coolest things to ever watch. Is like you skip ahead 7 years, and you're like, oh, what happened to everyone? And how everyone has progressed throughout the last 7 years. What's been happening? Why is Hyrule market in total shambles? And why is Kakariko Village bustling now?
Or the paradox of the Song of Storms. Don't think too hard about it.
Yeah, I don't want. I got to sleep tonight, Dan. Because that gives me back traumatic memories of the bottom of the well too, and I got to sleep tonight.
Yeah, galaxy brain issues too, and yeah, not to mention just the various creepy enemies coming at you in that one.
Yeah, but having the whole time skip type of thing is, every time I watch it in an anime, it's always interesting to watch because it's what happened in the last 2 years, in One Piece or whatever anime. If there's any time skip, it's oh, what's this person up to now? And you kind of go back, and the world is anew to you, right? You want to re-explore the whole world, and you spent the first half of the game exploring the world, getting to know it, and then next thing, you're 7 years later, and you say, what's changed? And it's a completely brand new game.
When's the last time you played this one? Because you mentioned you got save files, etc.
Oh, it's probably the last time I played it was when I played a little bit of a playthrough with Sylvie, maybe 3 years ago, and it was nice seeing her at least go through the Deku Tree. And the way that I did it when I was playing with Sylvie was I kind of.
Did she do it in under 10 hours? First of all,
yeah, she did it in under 10 hours. I didn't use the 10 hours to kind of go around. She wouldn't have the patience for that. But we kind of treated it like kind of a little story time, right? So you narrated what was happening, and then I'd start asking her questions oh, where do you think we should go next, right? And kind of seeing her involved in it was kind of something special, right? And since then we haven't gotten back to it yet, but I think eventually I want to try to do more of these type of story type games with her, to kind of at least have that to kind of cohere her into the gaming world, right?
You get the manga still. It's still like Barnes and Noble to go with it too if you want. Mm-hmm. You can really tie in story time with it. So did you play it on the 60? Oh, the question I was really trying to get to: were you playing it on the GameCube port that happened? Were you playing it on this? Do you still have a 64, or did you slog through trying to play it on the Switch?
Yes.
All the above?
Yes, all of the above. So I have I've played it on, obviously the first one isn't the Nintendo 64. When it came out on GameCube, there were 2 discs that came out with it. They had the promotional disc, and then that came with Master Quest, which was a whole new thing altogether with redone dungeons, twice as hard, more difficulty. And then they also had a collector's promotional disc that came with that and Majora's Mask that I played through as well. And then I think every single iteration of it, on the Wii and Wii U, on Virtual Console, I played through those. When it came out on the Virtual Console for the Switch, I played through that as well. And it's always been, every time it comes out on a new platform, has kind of been the ritual for me to play through it and just to kind of, relive your old glory days, right? I think for me that was in my mind when I qualified myself as a gamer when I beat Ocarina of Time.
I can't end it any better than that. So let's move on to your honorable mentions, and we're now going in the opposite end of time. We're coming back to sort of the near present. There's been a 10-year development cycle for this game. You had
12 years.
7 Days to Die, and that finally had its formal release this past December. But
Yes.
like you said, it's been over a decade of Kickstarter activity and early access, and again, I don't say that disparagingly, because they were always making progress, they were always proceeding forward, and but here you go, you finally got this thing fully released, and again, it's the first game you want to talk about after your big three.
Yeah, so 7 Days to Die probably have a couple, maybe 1,000 hours in it or so. The missus has a lot more than me. So it's one of those games where it made me understand why Minecraft is popular. Because it is exactly like Minecraft, right? You have
Yeah,
kind of
it's
this
survival, it's
community.
crafting, it's zombies. Just for context for everybody, it's that
Yes.
genre.
It's also like it's in the same genre as like Minecraft, in the sense that it's what they call, I think they call it a voxel kind of game, right? So where everything is destructible. So if you know don't like that building you see in the distance, blow it up if you want to, right? Build your own base on top of that building, or better yet, fix up that building and make it your own base, right? And kind of giving you that kind of creative freedom is a big draw to the game itself. Um, for me, so the way the game works is it's set in a post-apocalyptic future. You just get dropped in. There's very little like kind of get you off on the story itself. It's just you're a person trying to survive, and survive is the main objective of the game.
Name of the game, yeah.
So yeah, and you start with nothing. You're literally in your underwear in this game, and you start scavenging your own clothes. You make primitive bow, arrow. You have a small club, and through progression, you start to progress from like the Dark Ages to, let's say, the Bronze Age. You have some kind of melee weapons, made of metal, things in there, and you start to scavenge things from whatever's left over in this post-apocalyptic world. So everything is there, and then there's zombies. Obviously, there's zombies everywhere. Zombies will try to kill you, eat your brains, right? They're not too hard during the day. They kind of lurch around every day, but at night they run and they sprint, and the zombies get progressively more and more difficult as the game progresses. Now, the reason this game is called 7 Days to Die is because every 7 days there is a blood moon, or you can change it in the settings to any duration of days, but the default is 7. So every 7 days, there's a blood moon that happens that throws all the zombies into a frenzy, and they basically try to kill you, right? They, on a normal day, they're just around. They just kind of lurch about, trying to, scavenge their way through as well. In day 7, they know where you are. So you have to fortify. You have to build a base. You have to be able to, survive their onslaught, right? And they just come at you with sheer numbers. And every single 7 days, they get progressively stronger and stronger. Like, you'll start with like your basic zombies first, right? And think of it like a tower defense game, right? So, and they get, the waves get progressively stronger and stronger. You get basic zombies at first, and then later on in like day 14 and day 21, you might get, stronger zombies, like the cop zombies that blow up when you kill them. And obviously when they blow up, they do a lot of structural damage to your base. So you have to start repairing your base as you progress. And your base starts off being made of wood, right? And you move on to concrete, or sort of to bricks, and then concrete, and then steel, and then whatever, right? All your weapons also progress with you as well. So you can start off with like stone spears and stuff like that, and you start to scavenge. And it gets to the point where now you can build kind of anything that you want. So people have made giant sprawling bases. I have a couple of friends that we usually play with, and some of them have made entire underground facilities, like entire facilities, bunkers. And just like in Minecraft, the game doesn't stop at the ground level. Literally, like, you can literally dig downwards into the abyss and start making your own like bases underground. And underground is, different things you can find. Like, there's sometimes you'll find caverns, sometimes you'll find mineral deposits, and that whole feeds into the whole progression system. But when you get to the point where it's just about the building, you could literally make anything to your heart's content. right? People have made gigantic towers or monuments. People have made creative things too, like in Minecraft. You've made gigantic pixel things, right? Or pixel art, or you name it. Basically, I like to call I like to call like 7 Days to Die as like it's basically Minecraft HD without the pixelated stuff.
After the trailer release last week or 2 weeks ago, I don't know if we want Minecraft HD, so let's not do that.
Yeah.
So what's your record for survival? And when did you get involved with this? Because again, I reference like, I know you've been playing it for longer than the 1.0 release or whatever you want to call the formal console release.
Yeah. Okay. So the way that the game works is that they release it when it was in its alpha. They released it from Alpha 1 all the way to, I think it was Alpha 22 before they went to 1.0, and that time span is about 12 years. So I think I got into it, let's say like Alpha 16, and at this point, I think it's funny because it's my wife was the one who first started playing this game, and she played with it with her group of friends, and I thought, oh, it's kind of cool. And sometimes they had me sub in because they needed an extra hand during like their horde nights, which is what they call like those 7 days. It's the horde night, and then I would sub in because they needed an extra hand, and they needed someone to either repair the bottom of the base as these zombies just start onslaughting their way.
Put this stake on your back and go here and tie up that wall.
Yeah, basically. So, and then after I realized like, oh, you can kind of build anything that you want in this game, right? And I started looking online and seeing what type of things people are making, and people have made entire castles. Like you could literally make an entire castle if you wanted to. Someone made a replica of Helm's Deep from Lord of the Rings in this, and that was their horde base. It was amazing.
Just remember, people, next time you have a big project to turn in, just tell them you're only on Alpha 16. This one's not the end. We got more to go through. So I one more question I have for this one. There was a quest we had asking about a game that should be a TV series, and you said this one. Like, is it just the world you want to see created in that?
Honestly, there is a central, like, remember how I said there was no like kind of lore to it?
Yeah.
If you kind of look into
there is like a post-apocalyptic narrative to the thing.
There is a narrative. There is a narrative to it, and it revolves around a character named the Duke. And in the game,
so you just want Jack Black in a blue sweater saying "I am the Duke," and then the trailer ends.
It could be. Honestly, it could be. They've never really flushed out the character. I think this has kind of been their. We've been meaning to kind of put a story in this game, but they haven't yet. And it revolves around this character named the Duke. And who is the Duke? Is he on our side? Is he someone that is he the one responsible for the whole zombie apocalypse thing? And there's all these theories and lore things that people kind of put together, but it's never been fully fleshed out. I think that it would make an interesting zombie, because a zombie survival series are kind of a dime a dozen at this day and age, right? And I think this one might be a bit different because maybe they can incorporate the whole building and progression thing into the whole thing, right? But who knows, right? I just think maybe it would be an interesting kind of concept to have a TV series based on 7 Days to Die.
All right, well, let's move on to your next honorable mention, where you just wrote Fire Emblem. Now, I don't know if you're referring to the
fires.
Yeah, all the fires, all the emblems. You mentioned when you talked about Smash Brothers that Martha, you and I were introduced the same way to the Fire Emblem series of like, who is this blue-haired anime sword dude that's speaking Japanese on my game that I don't know who he is, and what is Fire Emblem and Japanese only? And finally, we got in what was like last couple of years, we finally got Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light as the actual first Fire Emblem game release. But they've been around for 20 years in formally localized games. But I was going to make a joke about, I assume you mean Fire Emblem Engage, because it seemed like nobody was really on board with that last year. But
yeah, I don't even think I played that.
I never even played it because it was in a year of one of the greatest years of video games. They started off tripping and whatever. Anyway, so what are we talking here? Are we talking Three Houses? Are we talking the series as a whole? Are we talking about like, hey, who's this blue hair dude? Let me go find out what's going on.
Yes. Same answer as last.
He yes me again. God, mother. I'm asking
So,
questions.
yeah,
I'm asking questions the wrong way tonight, Ray.
Yes. So it's all of them. It's honestly all of them. The first one I played through was the one that was released in North America, which I believe is called Binding Blade.
Yeah, I could remember it was Blazing Blade, Binding, because like,
or sorry, Blazing Sword.
Well, I say because there's like they're all in there's like that collection of like
sword.
3 or 4 of them in the beginning of the 2000s in the GameCube era that had that like
Roy's story. I think was the first one. So I mistakenly thought the first one was Roy. It turns out that was his father, and this was the prequel to the Roy game.
Listen, I don't have the whiteboard app up right now, and again, this is an audio medium anyway. Like the lineage tracing is going to be rough here.
Right. So yeah, I don't want to go into like kind of Legend of Zelda-esque timelines because obviously that's a whole discussion.
This is a much firmer timeline situation, just so we're clear. Don't get Ray, mute the microphone. I see mute it, Ray.
See, I didn't get to talk about the timeline thing because then this would be a really long podcast.
No, because I didn't want to get him riled up. He's going to be all sorts of
So for Fire Emblem, for me, the first game was the Game Boy Advanced one, which followed Eliwood, which was Roy's father. The only reason I tried Fire Emblem was because of Smash Brothers. So just like you, when I got introduced to both Marth and Roy in Melee, I thought, oh, Marth is a really cool character. And at the time, also, I watched Ken, which was one of my first competitive players I watched, and he played a Marth. And watching him do his compilations was probably the most elegant thing I've ever seen in my Smash career. So, anyways, it made me kind of fanboy over Fire Emblem in a way, and I wanted to kind of get, wait, where's this series from, right? He's such a cool character, and then I get into it, and it's all turn-based. I thought, oh, what is this?
And
right?
tactical, you have to also play the field too.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly. So, and it's Final Fantasy Tactics-esque type of game where you move your characters around, and there's the whole permadeath system where if your character dies, they're gone. Like they're gone for the rest of the game.
Yeah. There's only one character you have that if you die, the game's over. Everybody else can just whatever.
Yes. So for me, playing through it was it was weird in the sense that I was expecting something completely different. I was expecting like a kind of a hack and slash type of game when I first started playing. When I first started, because obviously Marth in Smash Brothers was a different type. So being tactical for me, kind of having that shift and realizing how deep the actual game is in terms of mechanics and kind of min-maxing everything. Because for me, that's one of the big things I love to do in the games is just to learn how to min-max. How can I break this game so that I can have the most efficient playthrough possible? So, learning about different growth rates, learning about which characters are great, and kind of and the plot itself is kind of what you typically expect from like Final Fantasy kind of game. There's a world-ending threat, and a bunch of teenagers kind of have to fix it for some reason. But yeah, so having kind of progressing through Fire Emblem, playing through, and once I think for me, peak Fire Emblem was Awakening. When I played through Awakening, and you have that plot twist again, because it kind of goes back to the whole time skip thing. But this is like the whole time travel mechanic where it's not really a time skip. It's just the future coming back to us. And
you say time has happened many times in the series. Again, in true anime fashion, has happened many a times in the series.
Mm-hmm. So, and then, learning that, okay, your future kids went back in time now to try and, help you avert this crisis that's happening in your real time in Fire Emblem Awakening. And then also being the whole paradox thing where now you get to play matchmaker for each one of your units. So depending on who it is that you want to pair together, this game now becomes a dating sim that you don't usually see in a lot of Western games. So now you're deciding, should I get my burly tank guy to have a kid with my healer over here, and the way that they played into the actual game is amazing, because then once you pair them up, their kid from the future comes in, and depending on who it is that you pair together, they look different, right? They'll have like the hair color of the father or something, right?
And there are guides about like who to match up to produce what traits and characters too. This is not like, oh, let me pair two people in a random. Like there are specific combinations that you can use a guide to figure out what are the best possible combinations for that. That one's trippy. That is wild.
And one of the most broken ones that I remember was so you remember how in Fire Emblem you have limited uses of your weapons, right? So after you use like an iron sword 25 times, that iron sword's gone forever. So there's a skill that you can kind of like pass on through your to your child that will make it so that they never use any of their weapons. So you can give, and then there's certain like overpowered weapons that can only be used like 3 times in the game. So you kind of see where this is going. You give this trait over to one of the kids, and then now the kid has this thing and an overpowered weapon that can literally one-man army entire maps and wipe the whole like battlefield clean with just one unit.
Yeah, see all of Byleth's weapons in Smash Brothers. You want an example of all those top tier weapons,
right? So, or you could make someone like who's a knight who's heavily armored, high physical defense, but then give them like the ability that allows them to nullify all magic damage, and now they cannot be killed.
And they're part dragon.
And they're part dragon for some reason, right? So yeah, like learning how to
we're really selling this one to outsiders. This is great. This is exactly the stuff that's going to put the RPG genre back 20 years. This is awesome.
Yep. So that was the whole thing with me with Fire Emblem, was just learning what's the most broken combinations you can make, and I did the same thing with Fates, and also with what's the new one? Three Houses. I actually
Engage is the new one. Engage.
Yes. I haven't played
the one everybody acknowledges. Yes, I guess the newer one is like 5 years ago now in Three Houses. Yes. I suppose. Yes.
So yeah, and I've sunk a lot of hours also into Fire Emblem. For me, I know I said that Awakening was my peak, but I probably would have to give a very close second to Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, the ones off the GameCube. Because before then, I used to also play them on an emulator, so I used to do the whole save scumming thing. And you could have
you just saved my next question for me, because I was going to say, what would you do if somebody died? Did you accept it, or did you? No, you didn't accept it.
I didn't accept it. No, I didn't accept it. I had to go back. I had to make sure all my characters survive to the end, because you want to read their stories about where they ended up after the whole campaign finished.
You disappoint me, Ray. Take over, Ray. I'm done here.
I'm sorry.
We got one more game to talk about here. Genshin Impact, which came out in 2020. It's almost a weird one. It's like one of the biggest mobile games that was also on PC. So, like, tell us about this one here. This game is going on for years. It's this huge story. How do you get into Genshin Impact?
So, Genshin Impact's kind of a weird one for me, because I'm on and off on Genshin Impact. We got into it. My wife and I both got into it because obviously we're huge anime fans, right? And it has everything that you would need in an anime game. It has waifus, it has husbandos, it has, everything that you could possibly need, including a gacha system. And the gacha system is kind of where they gotcha. And it makes it, they put it in a way where they make you feel like you can get these characters, and you can if you want, but you would need to grind an insane amount of time in the game in order to do it. And half the time, I feel like with Genshin Impact, you either play it for the characters or you play it for the game. My wife plays it for the characters, 100%. I play it for both. I like some characters that I will make kind of teams out of, and I'm a bit of a meta player, so I want to understand, like, okay, well, this is kind of the meta strategy right now, but I also don't want to throw hundreds of dollars at it either.
I was gonna say, Lazy, how much money are we spending on this?
A reasonable
amount.
You
do not have to answer. Listen, I don't know Canadian law. You don't have to answer this. This is America down here.
As what's the name? Games as a service, right? That's
games as a service.
Games as a service. This is like the ultimate.
Yes, I know of people that have dropped an exorbitant amount of money into the games. Thankfully, I'm not one of them, because we have to eat. Sylvie has to go to school, and yeah, so. But I will drop some money if my wife really wants a specific character, though.
Mm-hmm. They do help with it though, right? Because it's like if you miss the first time, if you pay a second time, you kind of get it, right?
Yeah,
The
there's
50
a
50s.
50-50 kind
Yeah.
of, there's a 50-50 type of thing, and then if you miss the 50-50, then your next one is your next 5-star character that you pull is guaranteed to be that specific character.
Right.
So there is kind of a guarantee, and it's not, at least it's not full gacha, because in
Mhm.
full gacha, if your luck is not good, you're
That's
just
too
out of
bad.
luck. And like beyond that, beyond the whole like character thing, I feel like Genshin is one of those games that is, they give you literally the most bang for your buck, and that's saying a lot considering it is a free game. There's an entire, there's so much content in the game. There's so many things that you can do. If you're not a person that collects characters or plays it for that, then you can play it for the achievements. You can play it for if you're an achievement hunter, there's so many things that you can do. You could, I think there's like an encyclopedia that you can complete, like a Pokedex that you can take pictures of pretty much everything and then like catalog it. There's also a limited multiplayer, and you would think for a game like this it would be one of those games that thrive in a multiplayer, but excuse me, it actually surprisingly has very limited multiplayer capabilities. Like there's so many things that you can do as a introvert in this game. This game is designed basically for an introvert.
Well, they said they took a lot of inspiration from Breath of the Wild to make this game.
Absolutely, yeah, it did.
Oh.
So it does the whole like open world exploration thing. So that's again one of the things that kind of drew me to the game, because I wanted to see, well, not me now, but and this is something like my wife irks me about all the time. I can't 100% anything anymore, but my wife is the exact opposite. She has to 100% everything. If there's achievements in this game or pets, or she has to get all the treasure chests or all the hidden Easter eggs that you can find in a specific area. That's what she has to do. So in this game, we can't really play with each other because then she doesn't like my play style.
I was like, this game's constant. Like they're doing updates every month and a half.
Yep.
So your wife must be achieving things just constantly achieving over and over again.
It gets to it's a lot right now, to the point where I think it's what 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 regions now. When we first started the game, it was just the 2 regions, and then we went through, I think it was Inazuma was the 3rd region, and then after Inazuma was another region called Sumeru. And the story is not finished. The story is not finished at all. It's actually still progressing as they add more and more regions to this. So this is a big cash cow for them, and they can milk it for many, many years to come.
I was going to say, how far, 4 years into the story, how long do you feel like there's ever going to be an endpoint? Because obviously, I mean, this game is just making money left and right. It costs them a bunch to do it, but obviously they're making a bunch back.
I'll be honest, I paid attention to the story for the 1st region. After that, I just wanted to kind of progress through it and maximize my characters, like get them to the point where they're in cohesive teams, because you have to build teams of 4, right? And they all have different synergies with each other. So learning what the meta is, and my favorite character actually in this game is a character named Noelle, which is not supposed to be a damage character at all. This character is supposed to be a support character. It provides shields and it heals, right?
But it's a tank in lazypie's hands.
It is a tank in my hands, but at the same time, it is also death incarnate, because it will kill everything it has. It will kill everything in its path because of the build that I use it for. So this character's name is Noelle. She's a very meek little mage. Maid. Very meek little maid. Doesn't like to do anything. Very prim and proper and very shy. But like her whole kit is about defense. So she builds defense and she gives shield, and you just stack nothing but defense, which means she can't really attack for anything. And in this game, when you pull on the gacha system and you get a character that you already have, you fill out their skill tree, which is called constellations. So when she gets to her max constellations, like I think it's constellation 6, she has this move now where it turns all of her defense into attack. And then she just becomes this giant wrecking ball of a maid that just comes around anywhere, swinging this huge claymore and deleting everything in its path. And she does so with like a smile on her face, which is amazing.
Well, that's all that matters, right? As long as we're happy doing it.
So she's my main character in this, and by far probably like the most fun kind of playstyle, because obviously I like the tanking playstyle, like all future defensive, and then when she pops her main skill, she just becomes a wrecking ball.
So are you playing this on PC? Do you ever like just have your phone out and just kind of hang around and play?
No, PC only. I don't
say, right? It
cannot.
seems like a lot to be able to.
I can't fathom someone playing it on mobile or any type of other platform other than PC. This game was made for PC, but I get the draw for it. I do. Some people do play it in mobile. I think it's also available on PS5.
Yes, they ported it to PS5, and it was like originally PS4, and then basically you could play it on PS5 as a PS4 port.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't understand how anybody could play this game on mobile. It doesn't make sense to me.
It has its draw, and honestly, half of that draw is if you're really big into anime, this game is for you. And for that, all of Hoyo versus games are like that as well. They kind of play into the whole like character design feature. So,
all right, well now we move on to the future where we're supposed to look towards a game you're looking forward to, but you said you're looking forward to Grand Theft Auto 6 or Metroid Prime 4 or Homeworld 3. So which one are you most looking forward to?
The one he could be a tank in. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so there's a lot of them that actually could be. And I actually just thought of it because this is a game. You can technically, this is a game that you're looking forward to. It doesn't necessarily have to be a game that's not yet out.
This is true.
So I actually just thought of that now. But one game I want to get into is Baldur's Gate 3.
All right, let's.
I've never played any Baldur's Gate before. Actually, to be fair, and I up until the beginning of this year, I've never played Dungeons and Dragons.
Wait, hang on. Like,
that's right. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons.
No, that's not my problem. My problem is you sent us 3 games and you picked the 4th one that already came out last year.
He's looking forward to playing it.
Bravo!
I'm looking forward to playing Baldur's Gate 3. I want to play it because earlier this year,
I do too. I'm with you. Yeah.
Earlier this year, I got my first taste of D&D, and I've never looked back ever since. I want to continue playing more D&D, and shout outs to Grim because he's our DM. We have a campaign. Well, it's on hiatus now, but we have a campaign, which is me, my wife, Kaminari, and his wife, and we all play, like, we're all noobs at the game. We've never played D&D before. So we decided to try this campaign out, and, we've been doing it since January, but hopefully we'll look back to getting it going again soon, but we've been going up until June, and then and it's been fun. It's my first taste of D&D, and like I've always been into like the whole geek culture thing, but D&D is one of those things that I've always been meaning to try, but we didn't get around to it until this year. So
Baldur's Gate 3, looking forward to it and one day playing it. Do you own it, or do you still have to also purchase it?
I don't own it yet, but I will. I will eventually.
Dan owns it. He opened it one time.
Twice. I need to disappear for a week and take my PlayStation with me to do it.
Yeah. So and I kind of understood now how the draw to D&D, and we've had I've also had my first in-person D&D earlier this year as well, which was amazing. So it was me and a group of friends. We all decided we wanted to try it, and one of my cousin-in-law, who's been trying to get us into D&D for years, I finally asked him, like, can you DM for us? And tried it for the first time. Me and my friends had a blast, and then we started doing a campaign online. Me, my wife, Kaminari, and his wife, and yeah, it's been fun. And I've been wanting to try to continue that on, basically.
This is the point in the show where we take a question from the Channel 3 history books that we pick for you to discuss here tonight. We don't warn anybody about which one we're going to pick. We just drop it on them just to see what happens. Tonight, we revisit a Dennis proposition, a quest where we take 2 characters that usually have nothing to do with each other and put a ridiculous concept out there. And tonight we ask you, if you're trapped in a well, Timmy had Lassie, but you have to pick. If you're trapped in a well and need to be rescued, who would you depend on to save you? Dogmeat from the Fallout series, or Poochie from the Yoshi series, and why?
So I've actually never played Fallout.
That's okay.
And the only reason, actually, the main reason why I decided to choose Poochie. But also, and if I recall, this may be a while because I haven't played any game that had Poochie in it in a long time from the Yoshi series. But isn't he like nearly indestructible and he can sort of fly?
Wow, I can't argue that logic. Yes.
So
I can't argue the sort of fly, but he's indestructible. Yeah.
He also finds things. At least in
Oh,
Yoshi,
there you go.
In Yoshi's story back in the day, he helps you find whichever the special fruit is that you need.
Dog meat will bring you body parts. What?
But at least
I'm
you
done.
can get something
I'm out.
edible. You get some nice fruit.
Most of the fruit's good. There's one bad fruit, but most of it is wonderful. I'm a big fan of Yoshi's story. It's a there's nothing difficult about that game. It's just nice. It's just there.
It's a happy-go-lucky game.
It really is.
Feel good. It's a feel-good game.
You play through it a couple times, you get levels, and you just it's nice. There's a nice music to it, and that's it. Last question we ask everybody: what's your favorite feature on Channel 3?
Target. I will say. I will one day. I will get the. Was it? You get the golden Easter or the golden egg if you land 0 pixels.
Yeah, one day I'll get it too. I put in targets every day, but I still don't have one.
I want because the ones I've gotten closest to are always the Link to the Past ones because everybody knows that map and it's really small. It's small enough to know, and because it's already pixelated, you already kind of have an idea of which pixel it's on. Also, don't do any more of the sky ones. I hate the sky ones. All the sky islands look alike to me.
There are distinctive traits.
No, I don't know how
make the
anyone
Sky
does
Islands different.
I don't know how anybody does Legend of Zelda ones, or those new ones. I open them once in a while, and I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know how I could possibly know where this is.
You know, if there was enough people that played World of Warcraft ones, you should do a World of Warcraft one. The whole of Azeroth on there, which is a big place.
Dan, get on that. Get a World of Warcraft map. And on that note, we've made it to the end of another What Are Your Three podcast. Thank you, Lazy Pie, for being with us. You can find the podcast. You can find the podcast at c3.gg/podcast, dropping every Wednesday morning at 3:33 a.m. Eastern on all the major platforms, including Spotify, YouTube Music, and Apple Podcasts. I am Ray. Dan puts this all together. Our theme song is by Caster Garden. And for our executive producer, Joel Willis, have a good day, everybody.
Channel 3 is the future.